What's up guys, it's Ryan and you're watching Ryan Vision. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video and subscribe for more. Everything that's been done to this Jeep has been covered in the videos, and everything that's going to be done to this Jeep will be covered in the video. So make sure you subscribe, that way you don't miss out on anything. Also make sure you check out projectzj.com. It's a collection of everything related to this Jeep, videos, write-ups, part numbers, stuff like that. So check out projectzj.com. Today I want to go over what we just finished up last night, which is a 242 transfer case swap. Finally got rid of the 249 that came with this Jeep. For those of you that don't know, that's the all-wheel drive transfer case. So it's all-time all-wheel drive, and then it has a neutral setting and a 4-low setting. And the biggest problem with that transfer case is the fact that it uses a viscous coupler to control basically the power between the front and rear wheels in everyday driving. Since I have a 96, the 249 that was in it, it's the later model, so it does actually in 4-low lock the front and rear drive shafts to the same speed only when in 4-low. But driving around town, making U-turns, stuff like that with these big tires, you know, running at 20 psi with a lot of rubber hitting the road, it's really hard on that viscous coupler, which is a really expensive part. So I had already rebuilt my 249 once, spent like $1,000 on it. It was never right, took it back to the shop twice, had a hell of a time on the Rubicon with it, all kinds of issues with it, and even after the second time, still just drove like crap on the road, a lot of bucking and binding, especially during U-turns. So was at Pick and Pull probably about a week ago, and just happened to see a 97 ZJ with it had a 4.0 in it, but it had a 242 transfer case with a 96 model year tag on it. So I did my research and I found out that the 242 in this 97 Jeep would actually bolt right into my Jeep. It has the same length on the input shaft in the front, so it slid right into my transmission, no problem. So the biggest piece of advice I could give you if you're wanting to swap a transfer case is spend the time, do the research, and find out what input shaft length you have on yours, and try to get something that already has the correct shaft. That way you don't have to take the transfer case apart. So you just got to do your research. It's usually best, like in this case I was working on a ZJ, so it's best if you find a transfer case from a ZJ. You can make other stuff work. I was just going for something that was bolt-in and, you know, as minimal changes to the transfer case as possible. Take it out of the Pick and Pull Jeep, bring it home, bolt it into my Jeep. We did have to do a couple things though, so let me get right into that, give you guys a little closer look on what it took to make this swap happen. Okay, so the first thing we had to do obviously was pull the 242 out of the Jeep at the Pick and Pull. And the problem there was, or the only issue there was, is we didn't have a jack. We just had my two toolboxes on the parts cart, and you know, so Nate came by my place and we went over there together, because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was really nervous about trying to pull a transfer case by myself. I'd done it before in the past with my buddy Joel, and I mean, he's a strong guy, and you know, it was a lot of weight coming down when we dropped that transfer case, because typically you got one jack on the transmission, and so unless you have another jack to separately lower down the transfer case, one of you or both of you is going to have to just with your hands manhandle this thing down. And they can be pretty heavy, especially the 249. I would say the 249 was a lot heavier than the 242. It could just be my imagination, but it feels a lot heavier. So anyways, without a jack, what Nate told us to do was, you know, he had done this way more times than I had, so he said, you know, let's just unbolt the cross member except for one bolt, and then we'll undo all the, you know, any wire plugs, anything like that, the linkage, we'll undo all of that. We'll undo the front drive shaft. The rear shaft was already gone, the exhaust had already been cut, so that was in our favor. But basically loosened all 4 bolts on the cross member and only left 1 bolted in. And so what happened is, once everything was freed up, we just undid that last bolt and kind of let the transmission and transfer case weight just drop down on its own. So you got to be real careful, just stay clear when you pull that last bolt out, because it falls down quick. And the reason we did that is there's 6 studs coming out of the transfer case going into the back of the transmission, and the top one is really hard to get to. It's way up under the unibody, and there's some like screws coming through from the interior, so you can cut your hand up pretty good, and you can't really get a wrench in there. So what we ended up doing was dropping it down and having plenty of room to get on those nuts and loosen those nuts and slide those studs out. So that's what we did. It was pretty painless at the pick and pull. Got that out, and then Nate took a look at it. He knows a lot more about transfer cases than I do, but you know, he started turning the yokes on it, and he said that there, you know, felt like there was really no play. Probably it had never even been in 4-wheel drive. It was a bone stock Grand Cherokee with factory running boards and factory mud flaps on it. So, you know, they weren't wheeling this rig. They were probably in 2-wheel drive almost all the time. And also he tried shifting it excuse me, into all the different gears. You know, it's got 5 different settings. You got 2-wheel drive, you got neutral in there, you got 4 all-time, and then a 4 high and a 4 low. So there's a lot of different settings on there, and he just made sure that it shifted smoothly and firmly into each and every gear. So the beauty of it was, you know, we got that thing out. We got some other goodies we needed, like a extra Taurus fan, windshield trim piece for Mitch's XJ. Got some goodies, and some roof rack bars, because I got a roof rack coming up. And it was a holiday weekend, thanks to Martin Luther King, and Nathan's a member at Pick and Pull, so we got 50% off. This 242 transfer case only cost me about $75. Couldn't believe it. So anyways, we got back to my place and we hit it up with the drill and the wire wheel to get it all clean. You can see it's pretty clean right now. It was a lot worse at the junkyard. So just hit it with the wire wheel and decided not to paint it or anything. And then the beauty of this Iron Rock Offroad kit is you can see it's a 3-piece subframe. You see those bolts there. Basically, you can drop the center section of the subframe that goes under the transmission without messing with the front control arms, and that was awesome. I mean, it was kind of a pain because the bolts and the nuts that hold the third piece of the subframe on that center section, they're a little tricky to get to, but it's not bad. Sure, a lot better than trying to mess with the control arms, so I loved that. We dropped that center section down, and then same thing as at the Pick and Pull, except we had a jack. We lowered the transmission down slowly once the center section was out of there, and you know, undid the rear drive shaft, undid the front drive shaft, undid all the wires. Didn't have linkage on at the time, so didn't even have to worry about undoing that. And then just slowly dropped it down until we could get a wrench on that upper nut, and then same thing, just slid the studs out of the tranny, and we drained the fluid first to make it a little lighter, and then just manhandled it down onto the ground. And by that time Mitch had come over, so it was me, Mitch, and Nate working on it now. And you know, it helps out to have a couple people on a project like this, so that was really nice. And then what ended up happening is the 242, it bolted in on the front side no problem. It slid right into the transmission. We got everything bolted back up, filled the case. But what we noticed was when we went to put the rear drive shaft in, the output shaft was a little bit longer, and not actually the output shaft. Nate measured the overall length of the transfer cases and compared the 249 to the 242, and we found that it was about 1.5 inches longer. The 242 was 1.5 inches longer than the 249. So took some measurements, you know, kind of just took a break and had some conversations about what we should do. And what we decided on doing, instead of finding a different drive shaft, was we just cut with a grinder cutoff wheel. We cut about 1 inch off of the output shaft coming out of the 242, and then we just used my factory ZJ slip yoke rear drive shaft and you know, slid it on there. So you know, after taking the measurements, after kind of eyeballing it and sliding the slip yoke on a lot of times before we had it bolted to the rear axle, just checking everything out, we decided that should work. So we went ahead and did it. Mitch got the grinder going. We just left the transfer case in the Jeep. He cut the rear output shaft, cut 1 inch off, and got it all cleaned up. And then we put the shaft on and we drove over to my local little flex spot, flexed it out every which way, and it was, you know, sliding on the slip yoke like it should, going in and out on that output shaft, no problem. Everything was nice and free, no weird noises, no weird binding or anything. So it's got the room it needs to let the suspension travel. And yes, eventually I will do a slip yoke eliminator, but for right now this is going to do the trick. So now let me show you something else we got on the interior and go over some more with this transfer case. Alright guys, so while we were at the pick and pull, we were trying to find the shift bezel, and I didn't see it. I got pretty disappointed pretty quick, and Nate did some digging around in the back of the Jeep at the pick and pull and found the shift bezel. So you can see now, instead of just having all-time 4 neutral and 4 low and saying quadra-track, it actually says select track, and it has 2-wheel drive, 4 part-time, 4 full-time neutral, and 4 low. So pretty slick to find this shift bezel. It just popped in, no problem. Didn't have to change the handle or anything like that. My understanding is the handle's the same on all the Jeeps. What's different is the tab, the shift tab on the transfer case. So I should have mentioned that when I was under the Jeep. It's a really good idea to, whatever transfer case you get, the tab that comes with it, make sure you hold on to that, because the tab from your Jeep probably won't work. So anyways, you can see right now it's in the 2-wheel drive option, and it is so awesome. I can't even begin to tell you. Like, if you have a 249, you know, I mean, even when I had mine freshly rebuilt, you can still tell that, like, when you make a turn, a sharp turn, not even a super sharp turn, you hear weird noises. You can tell the vehicle's kind of fighting itself. You can even, I don't know if it's just because I'm on bigger tires and I have U-joint axle shafts in the front, but it would actually like rock back and forth. You could see the suspension kind of move back and forth because everything was just under stress and strain. And it's just bad. It's nasty. I mean, some people might drive it and not think anything of it, but anybody who knows anything about cars, when you feel that, when you experience it, you're just like, man, so much stuff is binding up and just working against itself. It's not a good feeling. You know it's not good on the vehicle. So now in 2-wheel drive, it's like a new vehicle. I can't believe it. It's just this smooth steering. You can make a U-turn. It's not bucking. It's not, you know, getting all crazy, barking the front tires and weird stuff like that. It just goes. It's so nice. It's definitely a great mod. I mean, even if you're not having problems with your 249, but you know what I'm talking about on the steering, get rid of it. I mean, see if you can find a similar vehicle to yours with a 242 or a 231. A 231 is going to have more aftermarket parts. They've got a lot more things you can do to them. They've got, you know, 4-to-1 low kits you can do to them. But a 242 will get you by, and I think they do have some stronger chains you can put in them. I know they have slip yoke eliminators. I think Tom Woods has a kit for that. So either a 231 or a 242 is a great upgrade if you're currently dealing with the 249 in your Jeep. So I'd strongly recommend go down to your local pick and pull, see if you can find a close match donor vehicle with one of those transfer cases. Just take a look at the shift bezel is the quickest way to first identify one. If you don't just see the all-time 4 neutral and 4 low, chances are it's a 231 or a 242. So then you can climb underneath and look at the identification tag, and it'll have a number like 242J, 249J, 231J, and it has some other information on there too. It's also stamped with the year. You can always see the year stamped on there. So the case that I got was in a 97 Jeep, but it was stamped 96, so I was like, man, that's even better. You know, mine's a 96, this is a 96, it should be perfect. And ended up working out perfect as well. So really stoked. Big thanks to Mitch and Nate. Those guys drove over from Sacramento And you know, to be perfectly honest, everything was working against me. My buddy Cody was going to come help me pull the transfer case initially, and he had a membership, so we were going to get the discount. But his Jeep blew a fuel line and he had to drop the tank, and so that was like one sign maybe the 242 wasn't meant to be. Then I figured, oh, I'll just get my own membership and I'll go over there myself and see if I can pull it. But then Pick and Pull was like, no, if you get a membership, it's not good for 3 or 4 weeks, so you can't get the discount today. So you know, I told Nate, I'm like, man, you know, I guess I'm over it. Everything's working against me. I don't think I can get this 242. And he basically said, yeah, don't worry about it, because I'm on my way. I've got the membership. We'll get the half off. We'll get this thing out. And so he headed over. Really appreciate it, man. And we went and pulled it. Then we got back to my place, and you know, it was later than we expected. We were going to go over to Mitch's and help him with his Jeep. He's still finishing up a few things. He's got the XJ that we were rebuilding and installing a motor for. So he was finishing up a few loose ends, and we were going to go over there and help him out, but then it got late and it was getting dark and he was almost done. So I could tell Nate was kind of like wanting to put the 242 in. I was like, hey, I'm fine with that. So we told Mitch, hey, if you want, come on over. We think we're going to throw this 242 in, and we just started working on it. And it did take a few hours, but we did it right. We cleaned it up. We tied up any loose ends, you know, anything like the breather just was stuck on before, you know, the rubber hose, we put clamps on it. You know, we made sure we had all the right wire connections. Everything ended up being plug and play, and then we just took our time and didn't cut any quarters, and it turned out awesome. So again, strongly recommend this swap. Check out your local Pick and Pulls. If you have any questions, definitely leave a comment or hit me up on Instagram, and we'll try to get those questions answered for you. So that's it for today, guys. Next up is probably going to be the roof rack, and when I do the roof rack, I'll be doing the light bar at the same time. So stay tuned for that. I'll keep you posted. And remember, check out projectzj.com, like and subscribe for more. All right, guys, have a good one.